Hey Lego, you should make a video about how the Ottawa Senators have a legit chance at drafting first, second, and third overall in the 2020 NHL Entry Draft. Wouldn't that be amazing? Lafrenière, Byfield, and Stützle. Or if you want to go the diversified positions route, you can go Lafrenière, Drysdale, and Askarov. Or you could build a dynamic duo of Lafrenière, Byfield, and, I don't know, Raymond or whatever. Have a really nice line that you draft in the first round in the top 3 if you're the Ottawa Senators. Lego, make a video about that, please. Well, sure, let's talk about the Ottawa Senators and talk about how the draft implications and how the draft lottery and the changes to the draft system affect their status quo, but at the same time, I should make a very big correction. No, the Ottawa Senators cannot draft first, second, and third. Why? Let's get into why. Now, first off, the Senators can draft first and second. That's true. They can also draft second and third. That's also true. They can draft third and fourth. Also, they can draft fourth and fifth. Those are all viable options. It's kind of why we were talking about the Senators so much before the draft lottery process was announced, because the Senators were one of the only teams to have 2 lottery picks in this entire new wave of having this draft lottery format in the past few years, pretty much. So the Senators are very, very lucky. Their Erik Karlsson trade resulted in the San Jose Sharks giving them an unprotected first, and Erik Karlsson hasn't been amazing. The Sharks haven't been amazing. The Sharks were the 3rd worst team in the league. The Senators were the 2nd. So they have the 2nd and 3rd best overall picks and the odds in the upcoming draft lottery. But Lego, the Sens have a 3rd first-round pick from the New York Islanders, and the Islanders are in the play-in round. So if the Islanders lose the play-in round, and that pick becomes a lottery pick, don't the Senators have a realistic chance at also getting another top 3 pick? Well, under normal circumstances, yes, but we don't have normal circumstances here. Let's take a look at the trade which sent that first-round pick from the Islanders over to the Senators. It was a first-round pick in 2020 with a condition. The first-round pick involved is top 3 protected and becomes a 2021 first-rounder if it falls within that range. So, if the Islanders lose their play-in series to the Florida Panthers, and the predetermined draft lottery says that a loser play-in pick will win 2nd overall, and the draft lottery that's done a 2nd time gives the Islanders that 2nd overall pick, it does not become an Ottawa Senators pick. It goes back to New York, and instead the Senators receive the Islanders 2021 first. So there you have it. The final Ottawa Senators first-round pick in the 2020 NHL Entry Draft is top 3 protected, meaning that if it's a top 3 pick, the Sens just straight up don't get it. So, okay then, Lego, the Senators cannot get the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd overall picks in this draft. What is their best case scenario? Well, that's a different question, and one that I would be very happy to answer here in this video. So, let's take a look at the NHL's draft lottery procedure article on NHL.com. It goes over it very explicitly and says that pretty much once the draft lottery is done and we have our top 3 decided, whether or not that top 3 is decided from the eliminated playoff teams or the play-in loser teams or whatever, we know that the remaining teams of play-in losers will be assigned the normal draft rankings based on the inverse of their points percentage. That's said very explicitly right here. Now, the best case scenario for the Senators would see the New York Islanders losing the play-in series against the Florida Panthers and not advancing to the final 16 in the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. Once the Islanders do that, if they defeat Florida, all of a sudden their first-round pick moves to 16th overall and beyond. That's the normal formula, and that's what we're used to, where all playoff teams have their picks from 16 to the end to 31. But if the Islanders lose and they're remaining in the top 16, then let's take a look at the point percentage tiebreakers on NHL.com and take a look at where the New York Islanders actually land. If we take a look at these 16 teams that are qualifying in the play-in series, the New York Islanders are one of the best. So that kind of puts a dent in things. What you want here if you're an Ottawa Senators fan looking for the best draft pick from the New York Islanders pick is for all the teams on top of New York to advance into the Stanley Cup playoffs, win their play-in series, and thus move their draft picks from 8th overall, let's say where Montreal is, to 16th overall in the playoffs. So the best case scenario here would be having the New York Islanders lose. The Montreal Canadiens would need to defeat the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Chicago Blackhawks and Edmonton Oilers, well, that series doesn't really matter because both of their first-round picks are ahead of the Islanders. Same with the Coyotes and the Predators. In fact, there are only two teams that have a higher win percentage than the Islanders, the Hurricanes and the Penguins. So what that means is that Montreal would need to defeat Pittsburgh in order for Montreal's draft pick to get eliminated from this series, and the Rangers would need to defeat the Carolina Hurricanes, because this way, the New York Rangers first-round pick that is ahead of the Islanders pick gets pushed over to 16th overall and beyond. Meaning that at best, you would get the New York Islanders drafting 13th overall. It's not possible for them to overtake the other teams in this sense because the other teams from the other matchups all had lower points percentages than the Islanders, so it doesn't matter who wins their series. You could get even worse by saying that the Pittsburgh first and the Carolina first would win any of the 3 draft lotteries, pushing the Islanders to potentially 15th overall. But of course, if we're going by the scenario where the Ottawa Senators get 2 of the top 3 picks, then their absolute best case scenario is drafting 1st, 2nd, and 13th overall. It's unlikely, though, because if the Pittsburgh Penguins defeat the Montreal Canadiens, then all of a sudden, okay, the Habs are back in the top 10, and the Islanders move down to 14. So it's really unlikely that that happens, but at the same time, it is possible. 1st, 2nd, and 13th is the best case scenario here. So if you're the Ottawa Senators, who do you take in these spots? 1st overall, Alexis Lafrenière, boom. 2nd overall, Quinton Byfield, I guess, boom. 1-2, left wing center combo. Once the 13th overall pick rolls around, there's no doubt in my mind that there will be some players who probably should have been drafted in the top 10 available at this spot. And some guys would probably slip a little bit further than we would have liked, and it would open the doors for the Ottawa Senators to take a potential steal at this rate. Who knows? Do you go with a right winger to fill out that top line? Do you go with a guy who drops, maybe like an Alexander Holtz, or a Jack Quinn if you would like? Or do you go positionally and draft maybe a Jake Sanderson? Or maybe if Yaroslav Askarov is available, you take him to fill out your goaltending depth. There's a lot of options here, and with how deep the 2020 NHL Draft is in its top 15, the Ottawa Senators really shouldn't have any problems getting some good prospects. But it's all going to rely on whether or not the New York Islanders defeat the Florida Panthers. If the Islanders win against the Panthers, then okay, all of a sudden that first-round pick gets taken over to 16 and beyond, and now you're taking a look at a draft pick that belongs to one of the teams that had one of the highest point percentages out of all the non-Final 16 Stanley Cup playoff teams. So that pick is probably going to get shoved down even further. But of course, in a best-case scenario, you want to take a look at what could happen and what the possibilities are. And with the depth of the 2020 NHL Draft, I think the Ottawa Senators have no room for failure here. It's going to be really hard to screw this up unless they trade away the picks or they take some second-round projected guys in their top 10 spots, which is very unlikely. But of course, you know, we've seen weirder things happen in the NHL Draft, haven't we? So comment down below what you think about the Ottawa Senators and their top 3 draft picks. Of course, we talked about it here. The best case scenario is 1st, 2nd, and 13th overall. They cannot get the 3rd overall pick or the 2nd overall pick or the 1st overall pick with the Islanders pick, because if that happens, lottery protection comes in, and all of a sudden the Senators don't own the pick anymore. So the best they can do with all the standings and the point percentages and everything is 13th overall, along with their top 2 lottery picks that they are pretty much guaranteed to be using in the top 5. So comment down below what you think about the prospects, the Senators, the idea as a whole, the draft lottery, and who you want the Senators to take. I hope you enjoyed this video, such as that Trollson99, and bye.